Hi guys, welcome back to Miss Return Soldier, a platform that we use to talk about everything around healing from divorce and building lives that we want and love. So a week and a half ago, we started talking about honoring men and women who recently divorced and are at this stage in their lives where they find themselves a little bit confused at times with their emotions all over the place and not really knowing how best to move forward with their lives. So today I invited Dr. Tumi, who's a clinical psychologist. I wanted her to come over just to help us in dealing with trauma, the emotions that are associated with divorce, and how best it is that we can move forward. So literally just give us practical tools that we can practice on a daily basis to start building the lives that we want and love. So hi, Dr. Tumi, please introduce yourself to our friends.
Greetings everyone. My name is Dr. Tumi Desimelo, a clinical psychologist with a PhD. Many just call me Tumi. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Tumi, I just wanted to start with, when someone gets divorced, they feel like they had failed at something. I mean, for me, it felt like a loss at some point. And I just wanted to find out, why do you think that happens? And do you think this is something that literally happens immediately after you get divorced? Or is something that almost kind of creeps up on you at some point during this journey? What do you think about that?
I've realized that divorce is very traumatic, and people sometimes often want to underestimate the impact of what divorce can be on a person. But actually, when you go through a divorce, you need to actually go through a grieving process. The same way you will grieve if you lost a loved one. It's the same process that's required for one to actually overcome, a divorce and heal. So starting the proceedings is only but the first step. For example, if someone was in an unhappy marriage, starting the proceedings might feel like, they're going to gain back what it is they feel they have lost. But someone needs to actually grieve and go through the process, and the price of loving someone, that's why you then start grieving. So and the only way to get over the grief is to actually grieve. So you need to actually allow yourself to process and navigate the emotions, and not comparing them to other people's experiences, because we are unique. So some people would be struggling with a lot of anger, some people it's bargaining, some people it's their own issues that they've been dealing with, insecurities that will come and play when it comes to them healing from a divorce. So it's a process, and overcoming it requires one to be present and aware, and to actually allow themselves to process the grief. And it's also depending on someone's makeup. Some people tend to see themselves as failures because they wanted to succeed in marriage, and that's why for them it really feels like they have failed, and they would struggle with processing the emotions. But I think the first initial step is to accept that one has to process and go through the motions, and allow oneself to actually go through the various steps of healing.
So, some people feel like, I'm no longer in a couple. I have a lot to deal with. I have children to deal with, my former in-laws, my parents. I feel like I'm being stretched and being pulled in different directions. So, and like they just don't feel like they have the time to sit around and mope. So, what is it? What is this process of healing? I mean, do you have to like sit and be crying? Or are there other ways that people can actually process this entire thing and move forward without feeling like they're remaining stuck in their lives?
The first important thing is for one to be aware of self. Because we are different, one has to be aware of the emotions, the thoughts that trigger certain emotions, their triggers, whether it's seeing other couples walking around the mall, whatever it is that your trigger is, you need to be aware of self. And once you're aware of self, you need to then start tackling whatever it is that's triggering the emotions that you feel. But it's also important to allow yourself to feel the emotions. Because if you're angry, it's not going to be helpful to avoid the anger. For example, it's important to sit with the anger and understand why you're angry and where it's coming from, and allow yourself to process the anger, and hopefully it will become something else with time, such as acceptance and forgiveness. But it's very important for one to sit with the emotions, and you can always advise my clients sometimes to time the emotions. You know, as you're allowing yourself to be angry, for example, look at the time and say, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes. I acknowledge that I'm angry, but I'm going to sit with this anger and process and work through this anger in my mind for 20 minutes. And then after that, let me move on to carrying on with my life. And carrying on with life, obviously, it will come with its challenges. And it's important that one allows those challenges, you know, to play themselves out, and for one to be aware of those challenges as one is overcoming a divorce. And also starting to find things and do things that you enjoy. So it's not just, of course, now you are getting a new identity because maybe your children, for example, spend more time, you know, away from you, or they spend time with you alone without your ex-partner. But finding new things, finding things, different things to do that you are interested in, to ensure that you are, in spite of processing this thing, that you are still carrying on with life.
So, you know, last week we started basically honoring the men and women who are recently divorced. And I use the word honor because I feel that when people are in that space, they actually don't realize the pain that they're carrying. And I think the first instinct, so to speak, is for them to, you know, to have busyness in their lives and to do other things, you know, brush the pain away, try to move into other relationships, and because they just don't know how to process, you know, the space that they're in. So what are some of the almost kind of like thoughts or practices that people can start getting into on a daily basis just to see them through the day?
Thanks for that question. I think it's important, as I've indicated before, that you know, somebody who's going through a divorce to start being aware of self. So this means that when you are feeling down, when you wake up in the morning, to be aware that, okay, today it's not such a good day. I'm waking up today and I'm remembering what I'm going through and I'm feeling sad. And now what do I do about this sadness? I think it's important to then note what exactly is it that's making me sad? Is it because I'm thinking about, you know, the life that's gone past? Am I thinking about what's coming ahead of my future? Like, what is it exactly that's making me sad? And once I identify that, then it's also then important to come up with alternative thoughts, and not to say that you must lie to yourself. I think it's alternative perspective to exactly what it is you're experiencing. So if I'm experiencing sadness, for example, about you know, being alone for the rest of my life, I can then start to think differently around it and to say, you know, I'm going to heal and I will be in a different space in time. But practicing that, we need to also bear in mind that thinking is a habitual process, that we get used to thinking in a certain manner. So if you're constantly thinking in a certain manner, you tend to always be feeling in a certain manner. So all feelings are triggered by our thoughts. So it's very important to be aware of what it is your thoughts, your thought process is like. So you think about your thoughts. What exactly am I thinking that's making me feel in this manner? And when I feel in this manner, what do I end up doing? So once you get awareness of your own cognitive thought process, it becomes easier to actually tackle that thought process when it comes again, and you end up feeling sad. So then you can work on it so that you constantly are aware of your thoughts. And it's also important to note that you need to allow yourself. So even if you wake up and you're feeling sad, people who are wired like perfectionists might tend to think, okay, I mustn't feel sad, I must get over it, I must do A, B, and C, and so it's important to also allow yourself to feel sad if there's a need to be. Maybe time it, as I said, time it for 20 minutes. Sit with the sadness, understand why you're feeling sadness, acknowledge the sadness, and then once you are in that moment of sadness, then talk to yourself about what it is that I can start telling myself, especially when I'm feeling this sad, so that I can feel different in time. And that's not always easy for people who are used to habitually thinking negatively. So I would also suggest someone, if they have resources to access, counseling, proper professional counseling, where a sounding board can also assist you in coming up with alternative thought processes to the one that's now making you feel sad, or making you feel angry, or making you feel whatever it is that you are feeling, whether it's anxiety. People are different in how they experience these things. So I think taking the time to just be aware of self. I know it sounds like it's simple, but it's a simple solution to this thing that you are going through. But actually the first step is in accepting and understanding what is it that's going on in my thought process, because whatever it is I'm thinking, that's what triggers how I'm feeling and the things that I do. So if I'm thinking this is the end for me, I'm probably going to feel sad and anxious, and I'm probably not going to want to get out of bed. So it's important to be aware of those thoughts. Thoughts trigger feelings, which lead to actions all the time. So even if you are feeling sad, there's no automatic feelings. I always say to people that there's probably a thought behind that feeling, and that's why it's important to then start addressing what that thought is and work on finding out the thoughts, your cognitive processes that lead to you feeling in a certain manner. And if you struggle, that's where the professionals come in. And for people who have access to that, it's important to seek that help so that you can identify those thoughts and somebody assist you to overcome and create a different experience with time.
So thank you for that. So I totally agree, because I think that, for example, it took me years, this is my 6-7 year being divorced. And I think that because I tried to rush into things and push those emotions away, now I realize the importance of actually sitting still and going through the emotions, honoring every stage that I find myself at. So I would like you to speak a little bit about the importance of honoring the stage that you find yourself in, because, let's just be honest. There are some people who have been divorced for years, for like 10 years, and on the outside, they look like they've moved forward. So, they're into new relationships, they got new jobs, new cars, new houses, but emotionally, they're still stuck at that first phase. So what are some of the things that, you can almost like share with people about honoring spaces that they find themselves in?
Sadly, I think human beings, we are wired to not go there emotionally. We tend to not want to deal with emotions, and it's very important to first of all accept that you need help, accept that you're not okay, and start accepting that I'm not okay. And that process is hard, especially for someone who is, for example, hardworking, who feels they have failed in this relationship, or who's trying to prove a point that they are okay now. We tend to not want to go there. So the first step is to realize that I need to go there. And once you realize that, okay, everything on the outside looks okay and I'm not okay, and therefore I need to now get help. I need to then find a counselor, start sitting, or find something, or start sitting on my own with this pain that I'm experiencing, and start working through the layers of this pain so that I can get to a place where I am healed. So I think we tend to think that avoidance or suppressing, acting like everything is okay, pretending, and pushing harder and harder at work is actually going to sort out what it is that's going on within. And I always say to people, no matter where you run, there you will always be. So when you're running around trying to avoid going there, you are actually just always there in pain with yourself. And it's sad that the pain can actually take over your life. The pain can actually take away that shalom, that peace that we want to have in our daily existence. It can take away from you that piece of you just because you are trying to cover up the pain that you are going through. So it's very important for people out there to realize that the first thing I need to do is to admit that I'm in pain, to admit I'm not okay, to admit that I went through a lot, to admit to self that I need help or I need to get over this pain of a divorce. I cannot just be married. And it doesn't matter the length of the marriage, by the way. Just the fact that you are now going through a divorce, it means that something big has happened. So you cannot just expect yourself to wake up the one day divorced and be okay. So the first important and crucial step is to admit that I need help. Let me look deep into this pain. And not addressing the pain can actually make the pain even more unbearable. With psychological problems, the more you don't go there, the more the pain just becomes something else. You started off as sad, and now not only are you sad, but you're bitter, you're angry, and they call you that angry person, that bitter person. But once you sit with people, you actually realize that their pain started maybe with an unresolved issue like a divorce experience.
That is so true. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Tumi, because what I found as well going through my own healing and talking to you today is how important the self is and how I am at the center of my own healing and my own moving forward. Because really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you complain about your former partner, regardless of how really bad you think that they were. Just you focusing on that just does not move you forward at all. So I think just in closing, I would like you just to touch a little bit on just, the whole concept of self and how important it is just to focus on that more than you focus on other people's faults. Because as much as we think, oh yes, maybe someone might have cheated on us, or, they were very abusive in our, marriages, at the end of the day, we all kind of like contributed to the demise of, our marriages, or we contributed to, the health of our marriages when we're in them. So in closing, what are some words of encouragement that you could give to people going through this process and helping them to focus more on themselves? Because it is on focusing on the self that you can actually tap into that deep part of you that will give you direction and help you to move forward.
I like what you're saying there about, the self. The only thing that you are in charge of is you. The only thing you are in charge of is you. And I say that again and again. The only thing that you are in charge of is you. You're not in charge of your partner. You're not in charge of, things beyond your control. You're not in charge of your children. Therefore, even your healing, even whatever it is that you are experiencing, it's also under your control. You have the power that you need to access by just sitting with that thing and processing it and working through it until you come out of it. And sometimes I think we want people to say sorry, to repent, to see the wrong that they did to us. But then again, it's not your place to be waiting for that person for that, because even if they come and they say sorry, it might not do what it is you think it will do. So the only thing that you are in charge of is actually you. And that's why you then need to focus within and reflect within and see what it is within you that led to actually you being married to that person in the first place, to you being married for that time period with that person, and to also just reflect on making sure on everything going on within, making sure that you grow from the experience and you actually heal for yourself, for your sanity, for your sake, and of course, if there's children, for them as well too.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tumi, for coming through and for those amazing words and of encouragement and of actually just showing us really that at the end of the day, it all begins and ends with us. So I'm going to leave Dr. Tumi's details in the description below, and details about her amazing book as well. And Dr. Tumi, I hope that we'll see you and chat with you every month, and you can, shed light on some of these experiences and help all of us really to start building lives that, have meaning to us and, we end up loving. So thank you so much for coming through, and bye. Thanks, guys. That is all I have for you today. So I hope you enjoyed our episode with Dr. Tumi. I will leave all the details in the description box below, and please remember to subscribe, remember to share the videos and like them, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.